What's up, Paint World? This is Jeremy with Core Painting, and we're going to go over cleaning our Titan 440 Impact. This actually isn't my sprayer. It's a good friend of mine. Was a builder. We're working on a project of his. I got my 440 over there, a couple other girls over there. So we're just going to start with the basics. I'm going to act like you know nothing. It's the Titan 440 Impact. It's the newer version of the Titan. A couple modifications that are very valuable is the filter access is up here. It's very accessible instead of down here where it was a pain. It's a brushless motor. I think it's like 9 or 13 pounds lighter. Great sprayer, best sprayer you could buy. I recommend this to beginners, experts. It's Old Faithful. So when cleaning your sprayer or even just transporting it, you know what we do. We were on site. We were spraying. This stays in paint, stays wet. We don't want to travel with it in a bucket, which I've done before and made a mess. I just wrap it like this in some plastic so it doesn't dry out. I'll take this wrapping off. I'm gonna get it in some water. I like to use hot water if you can. If you're in an area, I know it's not always, hot water is not always accessible, especially if you're on the job site. And if you are on the job site, I recommend buying one of these washing machine trays. You know, sometimes we make a mess when we do this, so this catches all of our mess. We can use a little rag to wipe it down before we move it out of there. Cut up an old work shirt into a smaller piece. I like to scrub the prime tube and the inlet down, get all that excess paint off our first go around. Bear with me here. All right, so just like to wipe this down. It's, you know, you're gonna have dried paint on here, and it's, you know, probably stay with you for the rest of the painter's sprayer's life until you decide to have a in-depth sprayer cleaning day. But today we're not doing that. So I like to hide in these crannies. So this is called a rock catcher. This is to prevent, you know, larger debris, sand, rocks from getting in the pickup tube here. So take this off. Take it off frequently too, because you know, when I first started spraying with the 440, I never took this thing off, and getting it off seemed impossible a couple of years later. So it's good. These threads right here will get filled up. This will never get cleaned. So I'll just rinse it in some water. I'll usually leave it in there. Give this a little wipe down as best you can. All right. So now this is our clean water. It's going to push our paint out. So the sprayer usually carries about 1/4 of paint between the pump itself and the line. So what you're gonna do is take a can of paint, and here we have some Sherwin-Williams water-based alkyd urethane. It's a pro-industrial product. It's a great product. It's actually superior to emerald urethane in some ways. The leveling is great. Take your tip, throw this in your water too. You want to let it soak for a little bit. Okay. We just got done cleaning some black out of the other sprayer, which is very important to do a good job at that. So this is where your water is going to come out of to clean the pump area here. So now this is going to push out any paint that's left in this area. So we're going to turn the sprayer on, make sure the pressure's all the way down, make sure that we're on prime. I'm going to turn this on, paint, 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 paint. So we start seeing water. Because it's a water-based product, it's okay if some water gets in there. Okay, it's thinning out. Put it in our dump bucket. I'm just gonna run so we know it's water. Okay, there's our water. Great. Turn the pressure down. If you leave the pressure running and then you switch it over to your gun and you pull that trigger, it'll blast. So I get into the habit of turning your pressure down in between cycles, or pulling the trigger before you cycle between the two. So now we're gonna push all of the paint out of our line into our paint can. I'm gonna pull the trigger ahead of time. I'm gonna flip over to spray. I'm gonna turn it up. I usually give it about a 20-second count. You'll notice by the change in pattern off the side of the bucket, it'll start to splash once we start hitting water. Your pressure doesn't matter at this point. See that? Now we're hitting water. All right. Turn the pressure down. I'm still squeezing the trigger. We're in our waste bucket. Turn the pressure back up. Now we're just going to cycle between these two as so. for a few gallons. You don't need to do 5 gallons. Until we get the majority of that paint out of there. And then what we're going to want to do is get some real clean water here so we can start seeing results and know when the sprayer's clean, because we're spitting clear water all around. Little cheat code I like to do: instead of standing here holding this trigger, I cut a block like this. That'll hold the trigger for me. And I'll just, you know, mosey around in the meantime. And I'll cycle back and forth sometimes. No matter what, when you keep this trigger pressed like this, if you're on prime, this will still spit, but not at the same pressure. It's fine. As long as water's passing through the bolt, you're fine. But primarily we want to focus on the gun. There's going to be a lot of paint stuck in, and anything that comes through to this line is going through this filter here. So after we run a couple gallons through, we're going to pull this filter, we're going to clean this out. There's another filter in the gun, we're going to pull that, clean that out. If you were to just run water through here and not pull these filters, you'd have to run about 15-20 gallons to you know, get that clear water. And there's still no telling that there's not paint trapped in here. And you know, running between solvents or latex water-based paints, you got to really do a good job at cleaning between. I keep a separate rig for solvents and another rig for water-based paints, because contamination will ruin a day, that's for sure. But it is possible to run water-based and solvent-based products through the same sprayer. You just have to know what you're doing, and we'll do another video on that, cleaning a solvent-based sprayer. So we're gonna run this for a little bit longer, just push a lot of these solids out, and then we'll pull the filters. So while our sprayer is pushing some dirty water through it, just gonna take some degreaser here. Just some regular old Zep. Crud Cutter's the best, but this will do just fine. I like to spray these things down, right? Throw them in a bucket. Spray them down with degreaser. This will break down. This breaks down latex paint very well. Just let them sit like that. I soak them overnight sometimes. Put them in the sink the next day, and falls right off with a little pressure. But just gonna soak these like this. Let them sit while we're cleaning our sprayer. Alright, we got some clean water over here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clean our filters. I'll show you where those are located. I'm going to start the pump filter here. Usually these are hand tight, but sometimes when these things get some use, you get some gunk in there, and it's good to have a pair of channel locks with you. Alright, and you're going to see how easy this is to clean, opposed to the old style 440, which we'll do another video on. That one is not easy to clean. Now this is great because you pop this out. It's a little built-in wrench right here. Slide it down onto this first nut. Just grab a hold of it like that. Grab your top, grab this, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Spin this off. You have your gun filter. Look how dirty that is. And what a good job it's done. If you didn't have a filter here, these things would clog your tip and you would not have a good experience. So we're going to take these over to the sink. If you don't have a sink with you and you're on site, just get a bucket of water and shake them around as best you can. But look at all that paint that's in there. We pushed about 4 gallons of water through there, and there's still solids in here. So this is why it's important to clean the filter like this. Give it a good rinse. Make sure all the solids are off. Again, if you know your threads are real dirty right here, spray them with degreaser, let them sit for a little bit. Hit them with a wire brush or a Scotch-Brite pad. If you keep these filters clean, they'll last you a very long time. I like to get inside here on the gun. Pull the trigger a little bit like this. You don't have to. I clean these things on site all the time. Soak this in degreaser, all this will come right off. But for now, we're not doing that. These, I replace these every couple jobs. Sometimes they get very gunked up. This is the filter that your gun will come with. See, look, this is a spent filter. This was not worth saving. But this is a fine You want to use this when you're spraying fine finish. It's a higher mesh. They also have a yellow filter. I prefer to run the yellow all the time. It catches a lot of the junk, and nowadays, you know, a lot of paint's got a lot of junk. So, but the white filter is just fine for drywall primer, ceilings, ceiling paint, whatnot. Okay. Reassemble in the same fashion that you disassembled. I should note another good thing to do. Where's my rag? Is to make sure there's no solids in here. This is a good thing to do every time, because if not, these threads get full of paint that turns solid, and that's when you need channel locks to take your filter out, which is very avoidable. Sometimes I'll even take this little tool here. Just get in those threads. Save you a lot of time and headache in the future. Good enough. So don't make the mistake of not screwing this on all the way. Sometimes it'll hit this point right here. You think it's tight. I assure you it's not. We've had a blowout before. Don't make that mistake. You heard it here first. Okay. That is properly seated. Now, take our gun. On the filter, you notice there's a nipple here. The nipple goes up. A little spring down bottom. All right. Come on. All right. Make sure you're back on down here. Just hang tight. Okay, I'm going to go back into our waste bucket. I'm going to put this into our clean water. I'm going to put it on prime. And we're going to crank our pressure back up. Now you'll notice pretty soon this water will start to come out clear. Sometimes it takes longer, but that's all right. You might not get clear till you're, couple gallons in, which is typical. So now we're going to switch over to the gun. Pull the trigger, flip your switch to gun, and if you're lazy like me, shove your block in there and wait. Like I said, same process as before. You'll switch back and forth between the prime setting and the gun setting there, until we got clean water consistently. Sometimes it's 5 gallons, sometimes it's 2 gallons. It depends on the product you're using, the amount of solids, the amount of colorant. But it is very important, especially from going from a dark color to a light color. A little bit isn't really going to throw off gallons and gallons of paint, but still, sometimes that first gallon might be slightly tinted if you did not clean your sprayer good enough. So the objective is we want clear water coming out of both ends. Another tip I'll tell you guys is if you've neglected your sprayer and it's sat for weeks, maybe months, or even days even, a good thing to do would be to push out your solids with, soiled water, it doesn't matter. And then get some degreaser, a healthy dose of degreaser in there. Let it sit overnight. Let the degreaser sit inside the sprayer. It'll break down a lot of that stuff. Even take your filters out so these things can pass through. And maybe not this filter, but your gun filter. And, kind of pass through anything that may be stuck to the line, it's stuck inside the pump, stuck inside the gun. And then after you do the degreaser, run 5-10 gallons of clean water just to make sure there's no degreaser left over. And I found that to be very useful cleaning a neglected sprayer. After you've let these soak for a bit, give them a healthy spray. It don't have to be perfect. Maybe take a wire brush to it. What'll happen is inside there will get full of junk, and your tip won't seat properly. You can get leaks. Can't get the tip in all the way, so that's why I like to soak these things overnight. But for the purpose of the video, just want to show you good practice to do. So before you run out of water, you want to just throw our guard back on. Sometimes it helps if you put the tip in before you crank it down. So put our tip in, make sure this is nice and tight. Now we're just going to shoot some water through it, just to push out any junk that's in that tip. So I'll spray this down, turn up the pressure as we go. And then RAC stands for reverse and clean, so we're going to reverse to clean. Now we know there's no dried solids in this tip. We can put it back into some degreaser to clean the exterior of it. Both of these items. And I should point out the dangers of using a sprayer like this at a high PSI. When that tip's on there, you pull the trigger on a hand, it will go into you and you'll be at the hospital in a lot of pain. So that's the value of this thing here. Make sure you use that, please. We're gonna let this soak overnight. Well, that's cleaning a Titan 440, and follow our page for more content. All right, paint on.